guys, welcome to the first stream of Osmosis and the Eternity of Art. We're coming across from Twitch to YouTube to line up better with the tutorial academic community, art community that exists here, much more than on Twitch. Twitch was a good start. I'm just going to be adjusting a few things on here as we're getting started. So just bear with me when we'll just iron out a few things that might look a little strange, or the camera settings, music, recording, going between 3 screens now, which is wild. So having to jump between OBS, the YouTube studio, and just double checking on the stream from time to time. I think it's all working. I've got Smokies. I got Smokey here. Welcome in. Thanks for joining us. I'll just jump across to yeah. So I'm on my iPad Pro. So I'm just going to be doing all the work through there today. Let me just adjust that camera. Cut out that background there. There we go. All these little things are just going to get ironed out on the first go. Welcome in, Smokey. But I do have all the resources here, so we're going to run through everything that is in the description. So let's just have a look back over. So in today we're going to look at anatomy, methods in anatomy. We've got a few books. We've got How to Draw the Marvel Way. We have probably the more important one, the orange book, Bridgman Constructive Anatomy, with almost 500 illustrations. So that one's going to be one of the more grounding things, but good news is that you don't just have to stick to that one. We have other supporting ones. So we've got How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way. There's a process in that I've already put through here that I'll show you. So we'll go through one of these at a time. And there's also Morpho, which might overexpose on the screen here, but it's a series by Michel Lauricella. Sorry if I mispronounced the name there. I'm not French. So most people who are on here or subscribed here on the first stream will know me well from Twitch. But for those who don't, I'm based in Australia, and I'm a digital and traditional artist of 28 years. I'm not 28 years old. I'm 40, almost 42. And I'm also I'm into comics. I'm into classical art, traditional art, painting. I like Warhammer. I like comic art. I like ink, color. I do color pencils as well. We will do deep dives on each of these processes. Oil painting as well, which is the newest medium for me, just getting started. So that we'll go through each of these mediums once when the time's up. When the time comes around. The real key point of getting started here was to go back over the solid foundational elements of what really gives life and structure to all these different types of mediums, which is anatomy, gesture, and ensuring that your imagination is fueled, and there is a process for helping you put your imagination into the page. Such as the example of what I've got up here at the moment. So this here is a work through of what we're doing today, plus the How to Draw the Marvel Way, plus looking at the most important part is taking each of the phase from building your imagination by looking at some masters work that you really enjoy, such as what I've done here. using some of the structural techniques for building a model, an anatomical model off of your influences, and then building your model, your way, a way that works for you. I had a feeling when I was studying these books and doing the tutorials online that were available through other masters and teachers, I get this feeling that I have to master the way that other people did the models, and that's actually not even what they're saying. They're saying, use this, figure it out, understand it if you really need to. It's more important that you do, so you have a set of rules, but then build your own skeleton, because your style might be slender and tall like a lot of manga or anime, like One Piece, for example, a lot of really stretched out characters. So your model can't be the traditional sort of naturalistic human medical default. It might actually be extreme. But if you understand the components of what gets built into these anatomical structures, you can then just go, okay, cool, I know what the algorithm is. Now I'm just going to stretch some of the proportions. So that's how that works. All right, so I'm going to keep moving through the process, because I know, like, when I'm watching YouTube, that's what works for me as well. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do, I'll just drop off these couple of drawn layers there. There's me just sketching some anatomy in and some skeletons, and using both the Bridgman method and the Marvel method to build some skeletons out, which is really just building my own models. If we have a look, we drop that off. We've got a bunch of models drawn over top of existing completed ink works from different artists here, and so we're going to come back to that later and drop that off. So now what we're going to do is build just a compilation, a montage of influences. So this is interactive, guys. So this is a me and a you thing. So right now, if you have a book, I've got a massive tome here called the Fantastic World of Frank Frazetta, which is still in its box. It's open, but it's safely secured in its box. I'll show you what it looks like. Ugh, it's like it's like 7 kilos or something, like 14 pounds. This guy here, it's big, it's beautiful. I got it off of Amazon for a little over $200 Australian, which is unreal, because it was $200 US when it was released on frazettagirls.com. The link is in the description if you want to get that. In fact, all links, all mention resources, all mention artists and influencers for me in this stream today are in the description. You can get all that later, so you don't have to remember that. So get a book like The Fantastic Worlds of Frank Frazetta, or have another window open, or have your phone open, or a screen or a page of something somewhere to have a look through your influences, and just go for the key guys. Just go for the guys that you absolutely, you could see yourself drawing their stuff. If you want to be yourself, but you could see yourself drawing their work or in their style, but your characters. That's what we're talking about. So I'm not talking about going, oh well, let's just pick the most financially successful artist, or the one that has the most followers, or the one that does the biggest murals or anything. Don't go for that. Go for the artist you would love to draw like, and only pick no more than 4, I would say. No more than what you can fit on your hand, in your fingers, just because you're going to find more and more diversion from a core sort of path. And what we're doing is we want to build your identity into this structure that's going to come out at the end of this stream, right? So we don't want to have too many different styles. So let's just one problem solving thing. If you really like Frazetta, for example, like this stuff, but then you really like some manga or some anime stuff that's very sort of anatomically and details are different, I would just say pick one avenue today, then watch the stream back over, and then pick a different avenue and build a different anatomical structure head to toe for that style. You can decide which type of art you want to do at different times or for the rest of your life, or figure it out as you go. But I would just say don't put such different influences on your page. So first port of call, get yourself a new page. You can do this. It helps if you're doing it digitally. Another way to do it is if you're doing it traditionally, you've got books. You can either lightbox it. You could either put a very thin sheet of print paper over top of the book and just lightly sketch in, or you can just photocopy it. You can print it out. What you want to do is get, let's just put split screen here. What you want to do is get your influences onto your page, things that you really aspire to. So I have Frank Frazetta's Lord of the Rings. Let's see if I can just copy and paste it. Sometimes it doesn't do that. Allowing paste. Okay, cool. So I did put this down before. I'm just going to put it in again because I want to really show you the process of breaking down the anatomy of this guy. For those who don't know this scene, it's really cool because Eowyn here, on the sort of receiving end of the action, she ends up killing the Witch King of Angmar by thrusting her sword into his face, at least in the movie. So I like how probably what's going on in her eye right there is, I've got him. It looks like it's the other way around, like he's got her, but she's actually like, oh, he's wide open, and then that sword somehow scoops around and thrusts into his face, killing the Witch King of Angmar. So that's cool. Alright, so I'm just going to throw that in the bottom corner there. So if you haven't done this, it's a really good opportunity to do it. Maybe pick a couple from each of the 4 major influences you have. And what you're looking for is dramatic poses, extreme. So I'm looking at the Witch King of Angmar here, the guy with the mace, or the Morning Star, I should say. But we'll also draw the structure for Eowyn while we're here. If you want, get a couple of poses that are they're quite different from one another. There's one with the horse here. Oh, here we go. Oh, I think that's got a watermark on it. Oh, this one's good too. So that is, I believe, that might be a Frankenstein. A Frankenstein moment here, but or maybe it's like inspired by part of it. You got this monster who's like trying to take on the couple. All right, so we'll put that in there somewhere. We'll just sort of montage the thing together. You just want to have plenty of room to move in here. I'm just going to adjust the curves there, so I'm just going to drag the light the darkness back into the light there so that we don't have too much spread on the background. So there's a couple of poses. Let's get rid of the menu. Cool. So that's what we got so far. There was another one of the... Oh, I should be able to get it here. It's one of the Mongolian Khans that Frazetta drew. Oh, there he is. I did put this down on the first one. I just kind of wanted to show you the process of me actually finding this so that you had something to work with in terms of the method of finding content to work with. It's fairly straightforward, and you can see a lot of other content in there at the same time. If you're working digitally, I just put this on darken. You might be doing this in one of the many other programs that are available. Let's desaturate it so that there's no color in the background, and then when I get to the curves, I'm just going to drag the darkness back into the light a bit there, and then we've got, it looks like the Khans, both of them are having a go. You got Tarzan here punching this prehistoric Frankenstein guy, and then you've got the Khan coming in to try to save the day as well. Okay, because there's 3 from Frazetta. I had this one from Bernie Wrightson. Bernie Wrightson has, I'll just mention one thing that's a bit different about him from other artists. Frazetta is, I think he's one of the most, I'd say that he's almost one of the underrated artists, because it's like if you're into Marvel and DC, that doesn't necessarily you'll be aware of what Frazetta's done, and yet he's done some of the most dramatic and anatomically wonderful, both accurate and dramatic and moving and creative body types throughout the whole 20th century. And I would say that absolutely any artist at all that does comics, graphic novels, underdrawings for oil painting or water-based painting, and so on, they could all take the drama and the description of the characters from Frazetta, the color base as well, the palettes that he uses. He is so central to everything that's occurred in the 400 years in traditional art prior to that point, and then everything that occurred in the 20th century with pop art, etc. And the fundamentals of what he does will continue to be incredibly useful to anything you're going to do in the future. The difference with Bernie Wrightson is, I'm just going to shrink this down a bit because it's a little less drama. It has drama in it, but it's subtle. Bernie Wrightson had noticed that if you look at my anatomy here, it doesn't have any outlines on it. I don't in reality, I don't have outlines, because outlines is an illustrative thing, right? And it helps. If you have a look at Frazetta, if you look along the arm there, the arm is outlined. It's kind of like a faux shadow you see on the arm right before we see the distant background. You could just about erase some of that out. Like if I come down here, where's that punch? That punch is happening. Let's just see what happens if I erase out just some of that line there. We'll talk about lighting later. If I erase out, not all of it, but the high points of Frankenstein here, so that it just goes straight into it still kind of works. And then there's something about how the environment beyond affects the character where we're at, and kind of connects them a bit more. However, yeah, the line that is there is, it still operates as like a very thin shadow, even though it's effectively just a straight line in here to define the anatomy of the character, which is something we'll get around to. It's not something that shows up in reality. So what Bernie Wrightson thought, how he approached his work was doing the rendering. So he must have done an underdrawing, a sketch of some sort, and then he has rendered according to the lighting here. Alright, I wanted to get... There was another one that was similar to this. Hold on. I did see it just a moment ago. It was it was like a zombie thing. There we go. This is really wild. He's done a few of these. Oh yeah, so you look down below, you've got a few. This one's got a lot of movement to it, and actually will work into some of my other influences. So you should be able to see a bit of a color wheel, but in an artist terminology, if you want to consider it that, as in you'll see the spectrum of how artists that have influenced me have similarities to them. Alright, so we'll put him there. That's good. There are a few others. Bernie's done a few of these guys where the characters are just launching out. I think they're his versions of a character feature. So it's not just a character necessarily standing there, it's one like lurching out of its environment. There's some other good ones here that particularly the Swamp Thing. There's just so many opportunities there for him to really sort of connect the character to its environment, because that's the very nature of it. Here's some more drama as well, which is a little closer. So that is going to be something we look at later, because now we're talking more about the anatomy of the hands and the face. Yeah, but with Bernie Wrightson, he would render the light and the shadow, or more just the shadow, into the anatomy of the whole scene. You can see it's incredibly detailed. But if you look at each object that's in this entire scene, it's not really outlined. It's just the flow, the direction of the rendering, and the density of it that forms the objects, which is how reality works. Yet it still has his own illustrative inked format to it. So really, you know, when I read that about Bernie, I thought that is a great little noticing of. We'll look at my portfolio stuff later. Maybe not in this stream, but just another time. I might cut this down a bit. I don't want to get too small on the screen there. Cool. Let's just erase some of the unneeded. This is Mobius. I mean, if you're thinking right at the moment here, there's already plenty on the page, and this is where you're at, then that's enough. I guess if there's plenty enough on the page and there's enough anatomy and types of anatomy happening, then go with your instinct. You can see why I've sort of said don't necessarily fetch more than 4 different artists. If you can get 3, like I think between Frazetta and Wrightson, I'd probably have enough drama. I might be able to get, you know what, I think I might just leave it there for, I did like this shot as well over top. I might just grab that one. In fact, I don't know if that's, no, that's not Mobius. So I'm just going to limit myself to, you know, precisely what he has done. It's another shot there. It's very, it is drama, but at the same time, Silver Surfer is a very composed character. It just so happens that his movement in that particular series does have some extremities to it. Cool, let's leave it at that, and then we'll go to our final influence for me today, which is David Finch. He has an excellent stream on here as well. The link is in the description. I might blow that up and just erase some of Bernie Wrightson's Frankenstein there, and I'm just going to increase the contrast of that. It's pencil. It just happens to be the shot that I like. So I'm just going to reduce the range of white and reduce the range of black in there a little bit. There we go. And I'm just going to erase some of the cool. So I'm saying, like, don't use any more than 4 influences for each style that you're working on, but get as much of their work that you can find. Let's do a foreshortened piece here, just to sort of challenge our sense of depth. But get as much content from your influences as you can find. That's where you go deep. So you go a little narrow on how many influences you'll have, but then you go deep on the amount of them, the works that they have, and this will help get the rhythm and the exposure and the practice into breaking down these models into the structure that we're talking about. Okay, so we're on to that's step 1. So let's just go back to full screen here. Put your book aside, put your browser aside, whatever. Let's say that you've whatever method you've used to get to this point here, you've built an influence map. Not the structured kind. There is another type of influence map. Let me see if I can find it. This here is an influence map as well. It's structured to show. Turn that drawing guide off. Oh, that's interesting. Where there's, I can't remember how many blocks there are. It's like might be like 20 blocks on here, or yeah, there's a grid anyway. And then what you do is you pick influences by filling out each of the box by works of theirs. So this was a whole lot of colored influence for me in terms of like how the work is colored. It's very compositional, right? There's color, there's lighting, rendering, all the finished kind of stuff. So it makes a lot of the influence, makes a lot of recognizing maybe some of the components and basics a little difficult. So not the best place to start. That's an influence map, which we're not going to look at so much today. I'm gonna drop that music back just a little bit. Yeah, cool. All right, so let's go back to our anatomical influence map. Great. All right, so new layer. Let's say that you've printed this out. You can use a colored pencil, a Posca pen, something quite vibrant that's going to stick over top of it. I'm going to be using just a 100% magenta here with a technical pen. It works very well in digital. So, all right. So we're going to use the Constructive Anatomy book. So if you don't have this, if you do have it, if you turn to page 4, you'll find some blocking out. It's gonna blow out on the lighting here. I'll just get you an example, which I've already got here. So this is the book. There is another one which is a full compilation. I think it's like the 5th edition or something, and it's like all of his works. It's about 1,000. This here is I think this is the cheapest one, or a cheaper one with good photocopies and plenty of content in it. So there's enough in this one to go with, but there is this one here. That one there is your one-stop shop for his work. So if you want, I don't have that in the description, but I will edit the description to put that on there. Drawing from Life, the complete guide. That one there will keep you going for good for life. But the orange one here, which you can get from Amazon, etc., if you search for that one. Cool. All right, so this is the page I was just looking at. I'll copy that and just paste it in, and I will just skip to showing you what it's actually doing. So it's a photocopy of a photocopy of a photocopy of a publication being copied onto a page and then blown up. So quality is a little funny, but if you have a look at this, I'll just go new layer here in magenta, following that along. I am going to be loose, somewhat loose and somewhat structured at the same time. I don't want to overburden anyone here, and that's not what it's about. We're not going, let's get on full on Michelangelo. Let's get our full Michelangelo anatomy on the go here today. No. This whole process, like if it's new to you, you'll be like, where are we going with this? It's actually really easy. It's really low key. You won't be burning yourself out. It's like, if you want to strengthen your grip in your forearm, you just use that spring loaded, whatever you call it, vice grip thing, where you constantly squeeze it and it strengthens your hand, particularly if you're going to be a guitarist or whatever. You can all right, well, I won't bother going to it. Anyway, this is really where the I'm gonna have to restart my hang on a sec. For some reason the iPad program's frozen as well. Hang on a sec. Just nuked all of the things. All right, here we go. Everything kind of reconnects just fine, but just running seamlessly is the issue. So we'll always come back. Thanks for the heads up, Aritza. That makes all the difference. All right, so we've got this is a neck there, spine there. This is what's happening. We've got a block for the torso. This is one significant mass. We've got a block for the pelvis, the other significant mass, and the third, which is not in this little example down here, is the head. These are the three masses that Bridgman talks about forming the body language, forming the structure of our dramatic characters. Do you think you can handle that jazz? Here's another one down here. Looks like he's got someone who's like marching or whatever. So I'll just draw in the... Just trying to... That's why we got magenta, just so we can see what we're doing. Do you think you can handle that, guys? I know it seems simple, and not that dramatic at all, but if you've wanted this to be a lot simpler and your ability a lot more competent, this here is what gets you going quickly and fundamentally, and very strong foundation, a very strong foundation for building spine, sort of compressed neck there. Some of it will look really weird, particularly when it's foreshortened. Here's another one up here. This is kind of like a warm-up. I find whether you're rendering or drawing, whenever you're putting strokes onto the page, I find that it takes a bit of... let's put some 3D into this just so we can see. And I'll just point out something if you haven't noticed it yet. Just the twisting and that. So the main things to consider right now. So if you want dramatic, if you're thinking dramatic, why dramatic? Because it's kind of easy enough. Like if you can do the extremity of a character's ability. So what I was going to say before is that you might have to put some strokes on the page before you warm up. So doing this is actually very helpful. Just to, like, I'm not going to use any of these poses for anything, but it is helpful. If you can build with a very simple system extremity into the foundation of your character, you can always dial it back. But if you don't know how to, if you're building characters that are very static and very mannequin-like, and you're trying to figure out how to go from there, and you keep on gravitating back towards the safe space of standing poses and stoicism and that, you might find it difficult to move forward. This just blows that out of the water, right? This gets us a bit of movement. So if you want to go and do that with some basic stuff, it's just throwaway, but it all goes in. We're going to talk about a couple of simple things. Okay, so you can draw those twisting and rotating boxes over the pelvis, over the chest area and the head area in 3D cubes 1,000 times, and it will benefit you each one that you do. It will build your ability to build characters in any pose, whether it's plausible, extreme, it's stretched out. It's just the proximity of those cubes next to one another that will allow you to put all the wonderful detail of your creative and imaginative ability onto something that is a platform. It's like if you were going to do an amazing building in a city, like you see some of the incredibly unique and amazing structures in different cities around the world. The footprint of the building is really not much to look at, yet the unique construction of that building that we all look at and see in photos and cityscapes is built on that boring foundation that allows it to be so unique and so structurally wonderful. So that's what we're doing here. there's a little, I'll just show you one little principle here, and then one little thing to consider, and then we'll go on to looking at our influences and drawing from their mastery and ability. So with Bridgman, he is one of the most descriptive and powerful fundamental tutors of body language and structure at the same time. So you can you see something going on here with these bodies he's drawn? There's something standing out to you that I'll show you. Let's take this guy here in the middle left. Let's just have a look at some averaged out components. He's got this long sweeping line on this side where most of the body kind of fits into that sweeping sort of straight, very, very non-dramatic. It's not dramatic at all. But then you look at the other side, shoulder, torso into the waist, hip and butt, and then thigh down to the knee, and then calf muscle out, and then down to the ankle, and then that sort of fades in behind this other foot here, which actually does the same sort of thing again. And look at the difference between that. This is going to help your drama kick a... Look at that. But it's not to say that one side of the body is always like this. That's another one again. And that's just like, if we just grab the silhouette. So remember, as human beings, we're constantly grabbing silhouettes of things all the time. We seem to grasp, like if you hear a lion coming for you, or you hear a loud growl behind you that's really freaky, it sends you into fight or flight. You turn it around to see it, and then the next thing you see is the silhouette of the creature coming towards you. And if it's this little ball, you'll know it's a male, a very little ball, you know it's a male koala who's just probably trying to defend his territory, or he's freaking out about you because of your silhouette. And then you turn around and it's just him, and there's not really nothing to be worried about. But if it's a big silhouette in the shape of a massive big daddy lion, that will so quickly tell you to run, to play dead, to give up, to whatever you should wrestle. Let's have a look at another one. This one here is a bit more decadent. So this kind of sandwiches in here, right? And then it sort of planes out as you come down. This one here has this side has this, the average is this sweeping, it's a sweeping average line of action. But then you get further down and it sort of crumbles a bit. And then the other side of the leg is like this. This side comes up and crunches in, and then this side on his right leg mostly does that. There's a bit of crunch. If you look at the macros of it, you've got this going on, but then the overall average of that line is quite smooth. This is drama. We're just talking about zigs and zags, and so like there's one leg and there's the other, you know, and you wouldn't, like, you might draw like that if you're doing like abstract fashion poses with people with long sweeping gowns and or high cut pants and all the rest. Draw like that, but from a very kind of dramatic basis, if you look at the front of the body, he's kind of doing that. He's always looking for opportunities to just increase drama in the poses. These little ribbon things here are what the human body can do, what it can look like. The human body is very complex and has so much opportunity in it, in the way that it's structured. So here's a quick one. If we just draw straight forward, the pelvis, the body, and the head as the three masses, the three significant masses, these form the drama and the movement. Or I would call, as an animator, as an animation grad, I would call these other limbs secondary animation. So when you see a character walking along, the thing that's that silhouette again is telling you what that character is doing. If it is bouncing up and down slowly and in rhythm, then you're looking at someone who's walking. If it's like gyrating very fast and up and down, or lurching, maybe they're doing a long jump or the triple jump or something like that. But then all the way that the arms and the hair flowing and the clothing moves after the central mass, that's all secondary animation, and that's what spices up the drama. That's what adds to it and makes it really interesting. I don't know if you've seen someone animate a robot that's going across a screen versus some silly Looney Tunes character, and there are key differences in that, but at the center point is the masses, 1, 2, 3, moving to the extremity of what's required for the scene. But there's just one thing I want to point out in doing this, and then we're gonna go across to our major influence. You can do this right now. Do this. Crunch up one side, and then look at the angle of your collarbone across your collar, and then the angle of your waist. And it does this here. So let's just say this dotted line here is the horizon. You'll often find the distance between the horizon, if you do an average line right through that Pac-Man mouth, is approximately the same. Because in order for you, the human, to stay standing without falling over, your body adjusts like a cat twisting through the air. It automatically, unless you just lose consciousness and go over, your subconscious mind will keep you upright, and it will balance out with your pelvis. 3 is connected to 2, connected to 1. The head, everything, like if you lean this way and do this, and then put your hips in the same angle again, you'll find yourself falling over. So look at that, and then look at the average of this line here, and you'll often find that the angle between the jaw and that average and the collarbone and the shoulders and that average there will be approximately the same as well, because we need, if we want to stay upright, equal and opposites, that opposites, what do you call you got to average out, you got to balance out, you have to, whatever occurrence happens, has to be an equal reaction to it, if that makes sense. So let's just bear that in mind, and then we'll go over to our influence, our major influences. So here we go again. Frazetta, for me, I've been at this for 3.5 years now. I studied interactive entertainment, animation, video game development, but also traditional art and animation, as I said, traditional art as well. 2007 and 8. So I got a degree in that, and I was taught about the fundamentals of building anatomy. It was a condensed course. I'm giving you elements of what I've learnt from there. Let's use the Witch King of Angmar here as a starting point. got your new page, you've got your printout, you've got your magenta Posca pen or something. So basically balancing your torso with your pelvis, and then your head, your torso, and your pelvis against the angles that it's creating. So now there's multiple. Now, if I interpret this, if I draw this cube here where the chest is, you might draw it just a little differently. But what matters is that you have plenty of dramatic opportunity in here for when you detail it. So I think I'm looking up from the bottom just a little. I'm just going to put a little dotted line in here just to show, for me, just to help with the angle of that a little bit. I'm going to blow that up a little bit more for you. Let's put the head in. So it doesn't have to be in any particular order. The head is going to tuck into, because this is digital, it gives me an opportunity to erase the line out there. It really does help doing this digitally, but even if you're doing it digitally on a very basic setup, because it's such a basic application of it, it's very, his head is very level. You almost can't see there, but it's really tucked in. I would even let's just keep that line out. Let's just try to, I see an opportunity here that might really help. And I did this on the first time I did this. It was very easy to see. So there's really not a whole lot of opportunity to see the far side of his head there, but I just want to do it this way just so you can see the opportunity that's presenting itself here. So if I draw him from the side, his head's like this. This is from a direct profile view. His head's doing this. His chest is doing this because it's lurching back, and I am going to ask you to do this right now. Get into that position, and watch as your hands go forward, your head counteracts that movement. Let's draw the hips, the pelvis area in. And remember that equal opposite sort of thing going on there. So I'm just making sure that it kind of sandwiches, it kind of Pac-Man is a helpful thing for you. If you want, you can just create a very small line there, and then this doesn't have to be so specific, so because as you draw the components of the body, you'll adjust it so that it looks it's conducting the right kind of drama that you want to see in the body anyway. So your first point of if that's the spine, this is your neck up there, or it's kind of like crammed in there. If you really want to, you can just kind of like do a couple of dots for where that's going to connect. If that helps you, it's really up to you. And then if I hide him, that's all that's going on with the Witch King of Angmar in this moment. Let me just simplify the box here. And I'm just going to even up some of those sides. It doesn't have to be so structurally sound. I'm just trying to make sure it doesn't look like a mess. For this, you can be quite messy doing this, and it's very quick as well. This is what's going on with the Witch King of Angmar in this scene. If I have a look at my previous version of this, the one I made earlier, it kind of cantilevers very nicely as well. It was a bit tidier because I was using the straightening method here. Very, very tidy. I don't think that you need to be so accurate when you're doing it. So you don't have to have perfect straight lines. You can have just free form. But that's really what's happening. So I've got the Witch, King of Angmar, and then Eowyn down below there. You can see their body languages are very different. This is what's great for the storytelling, because he is in a dramatic position that the head is almost at right angles to the face of the chest, which is almost at right angles to the face of the pelvis. This guy is convinced that he should be overcommitting himself. So the more that your character commits to their pose, the more off balance they might look. So for example, if you run really fast, I don't know if you did this as a kid, you run really fast in a circle, and to see how far over you can lean before you slide out. I used to do that on a BMX as well. It was really fun. I remember having this undeveloped tennis court pitch. Like, it was just dirt. It was just a big area of dirt. And I would ride my BMX down the pitch and then lean over and then cut back as low as I possibly could before the bike gave out. And that's drama. That's what you want to put into it. So just remember that while the body tries to balance itself out naturally by counteracting the movements between the head, the torso, and the pelvis, you can have that character flying off of a cliff. You can have them on the very tip of their toe. Look at the Khan here. Just he's not even touching the ground. He's all committed. Drama. Look at this guy getting smacked. It's quite different. He's not committing to this pose. He's been forced into it, which we'll talk about force throughout this process. And if you look at his tenuous grip on reality right now, and where his feet connect to the ground and the mass of his body above it, it's not really foundational, isn't it? It's all this weight here. All that weight is going either down or back with the punch. This springboard section here, the suspension, ain't gonna hold him up. So I think it's no doubt that you and I are already convinced, based on his silhouette alone, that he's not gonna remain standing after that. I think his legs are gonna go out from him. Then his backside's gonna land on that rock, the pinnacle of that rock there, and then he's going to go backwards and tumble over down the rock, actually quite close to the woman. So it's pieced together in a way where we're going to see some more drama that's not necessarily him taking advantage. It's just falling on people. If you look at the guy who's throwing the punch, let's say that if we want to draw a line that's straight up and down here, what is that? 90% of his body, 10%, that slither there is committed to one side. His next move is throwing his other leg out down here. So if I was animating him or doing a scene by scene sort of thing, he's going to throw his leg out very quickly here, right after that punch, to counterbalance, because he's overcommitted himself. And so it's going to be a second frame, a second pose of him landing, and his left arm's going to be falling down and losing momentum. That kinetic energy is going to stop, and then he's going to rotate back and probably come, lurch forward over the rock to suppress the guy and make sure that he's down and out. Even like, who knows, you could do anything from there. Go for the throat, neck snap, anything goes at that point. It depends on the narrative, and maybe he doesn't want to kill the guy, he just wants to subdue him and then get his friend, the woman there, out of the situation and leave. Whatever your story is. I'll just re-enable the Witch King of Angmar right before his demise. So Éowyn's going to do this thing with her arm and then thrust the sword through his face, which would be another great pose. We could let's do the very next pose after that. That's also what the Witch King of Angmar's body is doing from the side view, and look at that again. The angles are counteracting the commitment. If you want to overcommit him, if you look at the center line of his entire composition there. So if you look at the far extreme point of his right leg and the far extreme point of his left leg, and you draw a line down the middle of that, you're looking at what, 70 to 80% of his body is committed in this direction. We're convinced that is what's going to happen, and that leg there is probably in the next pose, might even come up a little bit. I don't think he's that light that his leg would come up but you could just imagine that the follow through of that whole thing could do that. Just out of interest, I'm just going to erase this. From the side view anyway of his structure anatomically is counteracting, just as it is from the front view. You can see this accordion sort of style thing, and then over here it's doing the same sort of thing, but you might actually think, if you look at him without the line here, you can see the front. I'm just going to clear that. This is sweeping right down to that leg, and this is crunch. So you're looking at two things that are going on, and that is the head and the pelvis and the torso doing its counteracting. You're looking at the body language also counteracting, so it's smooth on one side, cramped on the other. So just consider, in drama, you're looking at that kind of asymmetry, and just let the pose do it. You know what really helps? If you do the pose yourself, throw yourself into it, and then just notice the angles that you're on. And if you want to really build more drama into it, just make it a little bit more extreme. If you're like me and you're not super flexible, you can just rotate your drawing, the pelvis and the chest and the head angle a little bit more, and then as you're building the anatomy into it, you can let's just say the next pose for Éowyn is thrusting the sword. So if we look at the sword's got to go into the face of Angmar. I don't know how she's going to get to this. You could interpret this a couple of ways. So I'm going to do it this way, where she is more on a profile. So I'm going to draw her torso like this, and counteract that from that average line there. I'm going to counteract her waist. This is her standing up. And then I'm going to do the head again, off to the other side. So my guess is that she might stand up. This is just like a front-on view. She might stand up and maybe on one knee. So let's just put one leg down like this, and then kind of counteract what you're seeing happen with Angma, with he's got one leg out and one leg back, except that because she is so low to the ground as it is, she's probably not going to get up as high as he is. There's no kind of point to that. And I'm going to counterbalance her parry. So that's a really basic one. I reckon we can push that even further. So if it's easier to draw the sword, like if I look at her sword here for a second, it is quite long. So, and that's going to go in a little way into the face. So, and then we'll talk about proportions as well. So she's actually, it's probably going to, if we want to talk about what's a little bit more plausible, I reckon her arm is going to be tucked in like this and stabbing, and she's going to back up that thing with that stab with the arm right behind it. So we've got two arms that are really tucked in, very symmetric. One here like that, the other one right up behind this left arm is coming right up behind her right. She's stood up. Let's draw her torso on this angle very quickly, and then we're gonna gyrate right through the rest of the work on here. This is just a little deep dive just to get us started. So I want to see the chest sort of leaning in. We could have the pelvis counteracting that, of course. Once again, pelvis is counteracting. We could add a little bit more drama by, if we have her head in, it's very focused and it's very, procedural. But I think what might be interesting is if we just tilt her head back so she's kind of going, oh. This is really comes down to your, because he really doesn't have a whole lot of room to move. Just draw. I'll show you when we get to. We'll just have a quick look at a model, modeling your character. So she's really cramped in there, but she thrusts, and then she might be a little bit smaller frame than that. And then this is what helps to having digital, is that you can actually move everything around. Doesn't matter if it gets blurry, it's all going to get detailed thoroughly later. So this can all get shifted around. And what would really spice this up too is if you take the secondary animation and you that's her hair, and she's got a helmet on here. So, it's all like fireworks, right? It's all spinning, and like a ballerina, the dress is coming out like that, like the hair is flowing out from that point. You can all the detail that you can add later. I don't think she has a cape or anything, or at least that's, if you want to put a cape on her, and have that, or even curling around this way so that she's kind of stood up and rotated. And if you support that in the main three body masses, if you support the twist and bending, do it yourself to get that figured out, if you throw that and you build that into those 3 blocks, rotate those 3 cubes and put them on that angle of the body, rotating, twisting, bending, thrusting, all the extra secondary animation, the secondary movement will just really spice it up. It'll just make it something amazing. But it won't really develop none of that secondary animation and movement. It just won't look quite like here is very. I'm still sort of processing the movement here. That I think I might be thinking too much about how she gets to where she was to where she is now. I know that in the movie she had a bit of time to thrust the sword, but she was so close to it. It was really just a double-handed, thrust of that sword into the face. It wasn't an epically dramatic pose with a Michael Bay ending. You could do that if you want. It's really up to your taste. So I'm kind of struggling here with making the center mass, super bendy, twisty, rotaty, but it is cramped. It does have a desperation to it. If that is very straight up and down, the secondary animation won't. It will look like where is the central movement that is making all the secondary movement happen. We can talk about that later. For example, if you have someone who's just walking down the road, but then their hair is just flowing, like a lot of manga and anime is sort of like that, where or the cape is flowing out from behind them and they're just walking straight ahead. That's done for a reason. It's done almost against the body language of what we anticipate when somebody or even a Western, for example, where you have your gunslinger walking down the middle of the street, or your sheriff, marshal walking down the middle of the street, and their poncho or their scarf or their cape or something is flowing in the wind, and it's just to emphasize the fact that they're quite strong in the moment. They're not influenced by the conditions. I would say that look to modulate your work. So if I just talk like this the whole time and work through the video talking like this, it works as an example, or if I'm trying to prove something. But if I do that literally the whole time, it would become so monotone and so annoying and lacking of drama and rhythm and modulation and adjustment of frequency and timing, that it would really grate on you, and it would fail to sort of keep someone entertained, or at least engaged, audibly engaged. So I really believe that this body language, cramped one side, this asymmetric, dramatic investment and teaching of Bridgman is not just about body language, it's about the narrative. It's about the character might be walking stoically down right at the camera, right at the viewer, the reader, in this moment, but then balance it out. So he's going straight now, but then comes the asymmetry, then comes the cramping. All of a sudden, someone just starts shooting, if that's the narrative, someone just starts shooting at the sheriff. And then he starts to move and zig and zag across the street. And if the whole thing is just dead straight all the time, I think if you're wanting to make something dramatic, that's not going to work. But you can mix it up. Because if you're going wildly, if you just end up watching 3 hours of guys punching up, it would be great more as a study piece in terms of going, oh, look at that pose, look at that pose, look, I've got 3 hours of 2 guys punching up. That's a really good opportunity for me to learn about all these different poses. But from a narrative point of view, it's more symmetric, isn't it? Because the whole thing is about fighting. It's not about fighting and resting or running away or rebuilding or taking a breather and then fighting more. It's just about fighting. So it's just putting action all the time doesn't mean asymmetry. Asymmetry is in the body language, the three masses counteracting against one another, but also the characters throughout the story doing different things and having different movements. The body language of this guy here, because he's been forced into a situation, the body has just sort of become a little dead, in the sense that his grasp has become tenuous. His grasp on reality has become tenuous. So I would just encourage you, if you've got your influences right there, just draw over like so. And just start drawing where you think the ankles and the knees are. Bridgman also encourages, uses the words blocks, and the knees, I think he says, are blocks, rectangles, or squares, something like that. Like if you look at the front of a knee, let's see if we've got one here on Wolverine. There's that. If you look at your own knee, it's kind of like a bit of a shield. I've noticed a couple of things, and that is that yes, block, but I noticed the little muscle that's below it. I don't know what that's called. Mine are a little accentuated on my legs because I snapped this muscle here on both knees. One playing soccer, one just jumping. Unfortunately. But if you just draw like two ovals like that, it creates that pumpkin sort of, that, you know, those other pumpkins, or a skull, like a skeleton, like a classical cartoony skull sort of thing. So you can draw that. I just draw the two ovals sort of in place, and that just a large one and the small one, and that just kind of makes sure that the knee isn't just a single pivot point. You could literally put a circle in there, that's fine. You can put a block in there, a cube, whatever works for you. You don't want to create too much detail at this point, really, of the shape of anything. Yeah, because this guy's and the elbow is down there, where all this mass here, so the mass of the shoulder and all that can come later. For the hand, you can do the wrist, but I've been doing either a block or a cube or a fan, like a shield like that, or smaller here, larger there like that. And I just rotate that around, and so you can see it from different directions. So if I hold it there to you like this, straight up foreshortened, what you're seeing is the index finger down to the pinky, and that's what you're seeing. And then if I divide that up 4 times, you've got your thumb, you know, wrapping over your fist there and that. But all you need is that if you're doing a fist from the front. I've just been using a rhomboid basically to capture the block, and you can pick that up just from doing it. Looks like this other hand here is sort of doing that, so facing us a little bit. It's going down and behind there. He's made sure, Frank Frazetta has made sure that the skull has like rotated to its extremity, like full 90 degrees to the torso. So there you go. He's taken that all the way to the limit, even though this part of the body is quite, it's a little dead. Like the torso and the pelvis are very similar. They've just rotated a little bit against one another, but they have counterbalanced. If you see, it's still true to that. It's folding on that part of the spine because it does, and the chest doesn't. Obviously, the rib cage doesn't flex or change position. Breathing, it does a little bit, but ultimately, structurally, it doesn't. So just as you've ragdolled this guy across the scene with a punch, it's still sort of bending on that midpoint. But then when you go down to the rest of the body, Frazetta's made sure he's put the crunch in there and the asymmetry. I've got another one here from a Marvel way to draw. So we'll look at this in a moment, where the whole character is arching. The whole character is one continuous sort of flop, but I've just added in some secondary items aside from the pelvis, the torso, and the head. Those three masses are kind of arching but rotating at the same time or going backwards. So, but the rest of the body is smooth across the top and then a little angled underneath. And I'll show you a very basic way to do that with the Marvel way. So let's just work through the rest of these. This is just to give you an idea of how much you can be doing to really grab a hold of this, and the different results that you'll see when you're looking at your masters that have influenced you. You might want to adjust some of this stuff. You might want to change the cube to like a specialty item. Feel free to do that, but just remember not to take this component too far at this stage. That if you're feeling the need to customize at this point, that's not a bad thing. That's really good, because it's igniting, it's catalyzing the development of the character. You're wanting to get into it. You're wanting to get into it more. So draw the, Bridgman says start with the head. So I think that's interesting, because a lot of, if you're drawing a character, where do you start normally? I think I've often started with the torso. If I'm analyzing myself correctly, I often start with the mass. Like I'll go, okay, because here's the body. That's which way it's facing. Let's build from there. I don't quite know. It does kind of pay to be conscious of your decision making, because you have the masters who will say draw the head first, and maybe that's the cause for that is that connecting point with the viewer. It doesn't necessarily mean the face has to be facing the viewer. It could be that they're facing away, and that's the point. So the real sort of emotive part of the character is getting established first. The other reason for it, the Bridgman saying that start with the head, is because he believes a lot of the sort of directions. Like if you grab a doll from the head and you move it around, and it just kind of, like a lot of stuff. The head is where the mind is. It makes the decisions. There's probably a number of reasons why he might say that. I don't have those reasons right now, but just think about it when you're drawing. I'm going to draw in the, and try to be don't just draw all this stuff without thinking. Try to make sure that what you're doing is is building a library and a system for you to work with. Because the next point of this is adding volume to that structure. I might want to rotate that. There's that foreshortened fist again. I might want to rotate that this block here a little bit more, so I can justify the proportion of that bicep. There's that angled but somewhat foreshortened fist again. For the feet, I kind of like the coffin shape with the ankle, and you'll see how that works into my building volume later, but I kind of like the coffin shape. You can also do just the what do you call it, paddle, what do they use, a bodyboarding, but if you're going to do actually I use this duck foot type thing. That's the big toe and then your little toes. Some people's toes will be a different structure, right? Like they've got longer second toe, and that my toe, I've got Nordic sort of heritage, so my foot is very much just a sequential sort of waterfall diagram sort of thing, where it just cascades down from the big toe to the small toe, wider at the front. I don't have a narrow foot. I have a paddle, a flipper, and then the ankle. So if I'm drawing a foot that doesn't have a shoe on it, I try to make sure that the flipper has the large toe, the longest point at the big toe. If I'm drawing a shoe, I like the coffin, because it has this. It just helps me get the build into the shoe correctly, which has that structure on both sides of it. If you can then smooth it out later if you want to, or if you're doing the footprint of it, whatever. I'm going to be careful what I draw here, of the shoe. Like if you're drawing Converse Chucks All Stars, or if you're doing like these Buccaneer type boots, all that kind of thing. It really depends. But you find a shape that just goes, well, that shape works for me every time we do. Every time I do shoes. All right, so we've got Mobius here. This one is a little foreshortened. Beep, 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 beep. It might be a little pixelated for the view here. I'm just going to do one difference. I'm just going to make a little adjustment, at least for this guy, and I'll explain. So if you look at the skull from the side, for example, you have the main cranium, and then you have the nose, and then the jaw that comes down, and then you've got your ear and your eye line sort of relatively in the middle. The ear comes up to the eye there. I believe that's correct. The top of the ear is about the height, the point of the eye. And then if you erase that out, and that, you've got something, right? And then you put the neck in, whatever. But the main thing is that the circular part of the skull is always the same from every angle. That mass. The reason why we often draw a cube, or why Bridgman draws a cube, is he just wants to make sure that we understand the angle of the face. If we can see the top of it, if we can see the front, how it's rotated, because when you see a circle, you can't tell which way it's facing. But if you put that inside a cube, you can then say that the eyeball's on this side, and then the nose is here, mouth, and then you get, when you do your additional layers for detail, you're then putting that part of the skull in place, and the face on the right side of that circle. But you can also include, if you want, you can draw the circle of the skull that he has, and then the jaw, the surface of the chin, and then if you want, you can draw the brow off to that side, and like that sort of comes with experience and the more the macro sort of detail and structure. So we'll look at using the Loomis method for building a face. That's something that I've really got to spend just as much time doing on that one thing compared to all the bodyling. I find just the face alone. It's got to come back a bit further there. Just the face alone has as much detail in it. Here's the coffin. As much detail in it as the entire body does. And that's me imagining from the side. Oh yeah, so from the side you can just do this for a foot side view. I also like a cut off triangle and then a section for the toe. So if they're standing and the heel's up high and the foot comes down like this, and then the toe is touching the ground, it's very easy to articulate how that's working out. And then when you draw the foot in, you might put the arch in, and then the toe just a little bit more detailed, and then build the top of the foot out, and then the ankle, and then the heel, and then just go from there. But yeah, if you use like that articulated paddle sort of setup, that really helps too. Let's have a look at this. Let's just go down here to Bernie Wrightson. We've got cube. Better plug this guy in. Running out of power. A bit of an angle. If it helps, just draw the collarbone first. This is just using some of the if you look at if you just draw the two circles for the shoulders, this is using the marble way, and then that might help you go, oh, okay, cool, that's how much surface. And if you look at the torso at the bottom there, it's kind of foreshortened a little bit, which is getting into perspective, which we don't have to tackle too much today. Remember, all of these lines are not going to show up in your final drawing in terms of the literal lines themselves, but they will greatly influence. It's talking about the influence of these basic forms. The elbow in. The hand is really interesting. Just trying to grab a hold of that. Just look at the mass finger point up there. It's going to come across back up to the shoulder. It gets a little messy, but this is kind of like your permission. This is this is what do they call it? It's a creative right. It's a rite of passage. It's a permission. There's a cranium again, and then he's got the jaw open. But what we're going to do is maybe just a bit more perspective on it there. There we go. Definitely can see the drama in that. Do we just hide the layer underneath? You can see once again there's a little counterbalancing here, that little wedge there, from the back is arching backwards a little bit against the angle of the pelvis, but the whole body, if the legs, I don't know where the legs are going, it's connected to the ground or what, but from what we can see, if you draw a line through the middle of this, because of the perspective, the character is getting heavier. They're committed. If they get stuck on the ground, they're going to fall forward. If the ground gives way, they're going to lurch out of it. That's what's going on. So you've got a commitment there. So it might not be that the three masses, the head, the torso, and the pelvis, are that articulated and bent and twisted and dramatic, but the commitment from the point of leverage here down the bottom, the whole body is lurching forward, so that is where it makes up for it. The angle of this whole body compared to the ground is what makes up for the drama. It's where they're able to get a lot of the drama from. And I know we're looking at the really cool overexposed high chiaroscuro lighting and detail of that zombie. It looks amazing, but the reason why it looks amazing is because the structure of the three masses. That's just something you have to commit to your mind as a character, a dramatic character developer. So let's start with the head in this case. I'm just going to use, just to help me out, I'm going to use just a couple of points of reference here with the Marvel method, which is just using some circles. He's got a massive body. We can lean into that. It's probably just going to, so the side of the chest is sort of up there. What am I doing? It's going to be coming up this way, and feel free to get messy. His body is pretty big, and I think that's just, we can't see his pelvis, but it's going to counteract that because he's in a stable position. So that there is going to be true about his lower torso. We can't see it, but the truth is it's going to be counteracting. So he's going to be doing this because that's just the position he's put his body into. If the torso is facing that way, the pelvis has to face the other way because he's not over-committing so much. He is pulling Dr. Frankenstein into him, so the crunch is happening and its pelvis is counteracting the body. Whereas you look at Frankenstein here, he is, let's just draw the side of the body like this. And then the pelvis, once again, counteracting the torso. That spine is really crunched in there. It's very much on the side, the elbow's down here. I'm just lifting up a little bit so we can see it. He's grabbing onto the arm of the creature. Probably just going to drop back the perspective there just a little bit, and the head is a little away from us. We can still sort of see the face from the side, but there's just a bit of, he's articulating in all sorts of directions because he's having a hard time. You might actually find that the legs are a little dead in terms of he's in the process of being like lifted up to a degree. I think he's probably come off the ground at this point, and it would make sense for that. Or at least the legs are, the toes are just sort of like dragging along the floor. Would make a great commitment to the drama of making sure. So if none of this incredible lab detail was in there, and it was literally just a stage piece of looking at these two characters structured, I would definitely put Dr. Frankenstein's feet dragging by the toes and dangling from the strength, and that's the force. In this case, it's a pulling force that's pulling, the creature is pulling Frankenstein up to him, and so the drama is, you got this massive volume and strength and musculature and facial expression of the creature, and then all the drama is on the Frankenstein piece. So you would think that the doctor is the calm, collected, and stable one, and the creature is the wild one, and that is true. But then if you look at this, the creature is the stable one, who's just strong and a pillar of might, and the doctor is the wild and dragged and dramatic one in this scene. And that is very much the story of Frankenstein, which is one of my favorite stories. Let's just do these David Finch ones here. He has articulated, he's done the bending and twisting. Let's just make sure we grab that. So he's got the torso going that way. The pelvis ultimately needs to be a little this way and twisting in the other direction. So I'll just use my 3D, my 2D 2.5D skills here to help. The notes that you're putting in this moment, in this structure, is what will get you the help and the format for what you're going forward. So it's a very structural approach to this whole thing, but by all means put all the notes and detail into this that you need. I love the this is another, I love the strength of this piece. This is another conversation. If it helps, you can reverse engineer components of the body, such as draw the elbow first and then draw to that point. Draw the fist. You can do a 3D cube for the fist in this case here. Let's just make sure that line, small, large, and then draw the rest of the cube to support that. Or you can draw a circle and then draw back, and then draw small pinky side, long index side, close them in, whatever helps. And then in this case here, I'm just going to erase out, because I feel like I'm overcomplicating some of this for my following thing. My following is to adjust the volume, and it's going to make that a little bit more perspective-y, so that the face definitely appears to be larger. And if I close out Wolverine here, can you see what's happening? Like, don't even need to, I'll just draw the neck muscles into the structure later. If I want to draw the feet aren't visible, but if I were to draw them, I'll just use my coffin there, and that's getting us what we're doing. Where we're going with that, I'll just cut out this here so we know that, oh no, that's fine. just cut out some of the lines there so we know that it's a 3D component. And that's, I mean, you've got Wolverine. You've got depend on which way the claws are. But yeah, easily rotating. So the torso, you rotate this way, so the pelvis adjusts to balance the other way, so that the body doesn't rotate and spin off in one direction. So they rotate like this, and then they rotate like this. So you just mirror whatever it's occurring. Do the pose yourself as well, if it helps, and just watch what your body does. That's what Disney animators did. The perspective of my claws there are a little off, but that's just because in fact, I think if I go with the forearm, that the claws will face that. It's a strong thing, but compositionally it's something we can talk about later as well. But for some reason the human perceives the pyramid as a very strong sort of thing. I think that's probably just eventuated as a result of how civilization's been built and structural things, standing on Lego, you know, all these sort of ancient and modern experiences that we've had. There are certain things that are just clearly become aware to us, the strongest types of, you know, formats. But these forms of strength, these examples of strength in composition have existed for a very long time. I probably didn't see as much of it in ancient, you know, like ancient, like the Greek black pottery or the Egyptian. It was probably in there. They've got it in their architecture, but maybe not as much in their character, like their storytelling. A lot of their compositions were drawn from the side, which is, I guess, where we kind of got a whole kind of beginning on the left, ending on the right, like, or, you know, side scroll beat 'em ups and shooters back in the early computer game arcade days. Are literally just a few thousand years down the road from Egyptian and Greek storytelling. Just the way that the format was. So it's interesting just how some stuff has. It's just fundamentally there. It doesn't change. If I notice that the head is rotating one way, the torso might rotate in the opposite direction. If the torso is going in that direction, then the pelvis should be rotating a little bit off in the other direction. So we've got a very foreshortened experience here. So the torso is rotated this way a little bit. So the pelvis will be somewhat this way. So it's going to, the far corner of it is going to be sort of set off in the other direction. If it helps me on you can take the note, putting a little dotted sort of thing in. I'm not going to see the little muscle under the kneecap in this case, because it's all behind, and the knee on this side, you don't even see it. It just sort of ends, so you can just sort of like do a little oval there. I'd say this hand here is probably a little big, but this one up here is in our face. You can't see. You can't see the rest of the arm. It's just a chunk. That is, drawing on a foreshortened thing is very dramatic, very engaging, very immersive. You're thrust right into the grabbing space of Batman, which is why they do it in comic books. It's action. Action's really just drama and dramatic extensions. It's an extremity of drama. So if you go down to this one here, you have drama on a very kind of intimate and lesser expanse to it, but it's still dramatic, with Frankenstein being pulled off his feet and into a great creature. You got this stoic, aggressive looking pose that is hugely just based on the compositional strength. And then you've got this immersive, explosive, foreshortened extremity as well, where it's trying to come out of the page to grab you. So you've got a mixture of all sorts of dramatic elements here. They're all part of the genre, and I really think drama is a great word to use if you're in writing, if you're in filmmaking, if you're in graphic design or illustrating, or if you're into realism, illustrated realism, and animation. That drama is a really good word, because the word alone, it just sort of says there has to be something a little emotional. At least there has to be something emotional to an extent. It starts you off at a subtle extreme. It's interesting. It's not just a TV show where nothing happens and nobody raises their voice and nobody really goes anywhere or moves. It sort of suggests stuff is happening. Just the word drama alone. I don't know what I kind of almost don't know what other word I would use, other than, you know, sleepy, I guess, if you wanted to just illustrate someone kicking back on the 30th floor of their apartment on a full window side bedroom, and they're just kicking back on their bed, reading or listening to music, looking out over a rainy Tokyo or something like that. There's a different sort of communication in that, and then you're looking at you're conveying an emotion that a lot of people find very comforting, because it's the opposite of drama. People know what drama is, therefore this scene with not much action in it is very comforting and very quieting, and it's, you know, it often makes a nice desktop or a background, a phone wallpaper or something like that, because it's just this calming composition in a world of drama. But if you're telling a story to someone, if the whole story is someone just, the whole book or whatever, the whole novel is just someone in their bedroom not doing anything, talking, and then that has no dramatic element to it either, I think would be just less engagement. If that scene that they're in there, it was right after a massive action scene or a heist, or maybe a huge argument, or a dash, or they're a courier and they just they're on the 9 to 5 and they're just rushing through the traffic of people and cars every day, trying to keep them, you know, their sustainability happening. And this moment right after it. It adds that drama simply by asymmetry. So he's just thinking about the narrative as well. All right, so we have we've looked at the Bridgman technique of building drama from a very structural, methodical point of view. Is this difficult? Is this difficult to do? I'm asking you. Is this easy to sort of grab? Counterbalanced boxes. We'll do a really quick one here for the Witch King of Angmar again. Neck, spine, and then we've got I'll just mention a brief one about proportion. Coffin foot. The other one I can't quite see where it is. The knee is like overlapping with our new drawing. I think he's very committed. It seems like the leg is back up over here somewhere. Elbow, draw back down from that. It goes behind the head. And then we'll just do a little line for the pinky side and a big line for the index side. Same again. Draw back to the, I'll just close out the image. This is an easy one. I know that we're focusing on the 3 masses. Okay, head, torso, pelvis. That gives you the and I could really make them a lot more like we did before, a lot more counterbalanced here. Really just sort of work on that, scrub it in. Like if it's traditional, you're just going to be drawing over top of it or just erasing a little bit more. Make sure that is really Pac-Man it in. Okay, and then that head is definitely coming back down. I get that. So you're kind of doing this. You've got enough notes there to tell your volumetric process. You're informing the next process quite clearly. There has to be the detailed part of the volume and the body language and the anatomy we're doing next is really well informed. Just in terms of drawing the basic stickman skeleton, this here is equal to this here. So I might just draw that, this and this. So head plus, it's actually the 3 masses. Equal to the whole leg right down to the heel. If that helps. You'll kind of figure that out. Like something will give it away. When the character's on an angle or a perspective of something, you might just need to draw a couple of lines, perspective lines in to help with that, and you adjust by eye. That's another topic which I'm gonna study a little bit more to bring in. But just from a structural point of view, I found when I drew a stick man, for example, when I moved the stickman to another pose after doing him a few times, I realized that when I was changing the pose, or if it was closer or further away or rotated or something, I noticed that I just sort of started to pick it up naturally from the exercises. And then you'll draw something and you go, oh, that looks too long, or his left arm is further away, but it's the same length as his right arm. I'll just make it shorter. And when you're doing this sort of structural thing where nothing is going to be kept, it's just going to inform the next process. You kind of like adjust and figure it out. But the good thing is, and this is the whole point of doing this, is that it's such a simple structural thing. It allows you to mess about and adjust it without really having to worry about how straight the line is or how beautiful the circle of the elbows are, because it's not going to stay there. It's literally just a template to help you structure the rest. And this thigh is equal to the calf. So we'll just have a look at this now. Thigh, calf are the same length. Forearm, bicep equal. They're equal lengths. Unless you're doing a character, I mean, even if you do like a troll where it's got really short arms, or like a T-Rex, or really long arms right down to the ground and dragging its knuckles like an ape or something, or a gorilla, the distance between the wrist and the elbow is the same as the distance between the elbow and the shoulder. Still, usually that's the thing. You want to change it up, go ahead. I've noticed some like horror creatures in that will sometimes have a short bicep and then a really long forearm and then really long fingers, and it's all unnerving because it's not anatomically accurate. As long as there appears to be a sense of function and intention behind that, I think in the way that you build your character out, I think you can break all those rules. So let's we'll just keep some of this. I'm going to create a new, let's draw a rectangle. We'll keep half of this stuff here. I'm just going to white out this side, create a new layer. So we've got our reference material. I'll go across to black now. Cool. All right, so the next three components of what we're looking at is the Bridgman. We'll just do a quick Bridgman structure straight on. Then we'll do a Marvel structure straight on. And then we'll just talk about how you might want to do what helps you. So designing your own. And we'll just look at just a couple of interpretations of that. One that I've recently come up with, I'm not finished with, but it's kind of working for me. And then maybe just do like another extreme, like an anime type one, just to show how we can adapt the idea of that. So let's have a look at the Bridgman. Is pretty much what we've done. I mean, even looking at the one down the bottom there, it's literally, he's drawn the three masses and then he's drawn the stick limbs below that. Bear with me. So if we draw it straight on, what he does is he draws the top and the bottom extremities, so the top of the head, bottom of the feet, which automatically gives you the middle, the whole body, the knees, and then you can work through the rest of it. We'll just pull up I think his is, I want to say, I think it's 8 heads. Here we go. I don't think that's his. I think it's 8 heads. That's the Loomis method. There is commonly differences between someone who has a traditional or a common male skeleton versus a feminine skeleton. The perspective, there is no kind of pure. Here's a David Finch one. He's got, I think, a 9 head, because comic books are a little more extreme. So they look natural, but when you look at, if you look at 100 people from around the world, male and female and whatever, you just kind of see different frames, right? Slightly different proportions. You know, maybe it's very common from particular parts of the world where the toe structure is a little different. You know, some people or regions, just because of the origins of people, there's less and less. More and more people come from less people, which means they were influenced by less genes, DNA, so that there was a lot more people influenced by just a core. A lot of people are being influenced by, more core genes, and that's for you to sort of think about and research. This is another example. I think that is Bridgman looking at Michelangelo's head. Let's just copy that in, just because I want you to have. Can't copy it. A point of reference. It is in the. Hang on, I'll just snap that. It's in the book. Copy. Delete. It's really funny when it comes to like pasting. I'm just gonna put it there just so you know roughly what we're talking about. So the head, let's just draw. I'm just gonna do it on a separate page again. Let's just draw a head, just a round oval, just to sort of grab all of, and then duplicate. Actually, you know what's going to be the safest thing to do here? Or what I should say is to draw a circle for the cranium. So like what we said there. So a pretty accurate circle. If you're doing it traditionally, if you want, draw like use a, I don't know, a coin or something. You can do a skull, for example, something like that, or just add a little bit of a jaw in there if that kind of helps. Just so that my oval is something that I've used, which includes the jaw as well. But I think it might actually be a good idea to include the cranium as its own little thing, because we know that is the same looking thing over any direction you look at a circle from. It's still a circle. So here we go, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7, and one more. And look at that, that's pretty much it. It's pretty, just coincidentally I drew a frame that was, or a head that would span out to be eight heads tall. So the halfway point, so this is going to be the knees, and so a little muscle below it, the ankle, the thigh. These two are the same, thigh and calf, for a naturalistic model. Bridgman does the pelvis. So if you draw your cube right averaged over that, and then you draw your torso, he describes it as I think he describes the body as a block, which we've exhibited, but I think he also describes it as an oval, but the actual rib cage is thinner at the top, like where the collar, up here, the cage sort of goes out, and everyone's bodies are different, but it is a little bigger at the top. If you want, you could just draw it a little bit like that, a cube that's narrow at the top, whatever helps you. And then you've got the head, the skull, and the neck that's in that space. So the arms, if you have a look on his example there, the hand starts, the wrist is at the middle, so the hand starts below. If I draw a straight line here, for example, if the guy's looking pretty steady. Let's just get rid of, I'll leave the heads in. I'll just put this in for you guys as well. It'd be funny if it didn't add up to 8 and I just completely screwed that up. I haven't drawn the other arm in, doesn't matter. But the hand starts, I'm looking at his example, the hand starts when you come down to the halfway line. That's nice. That works out nicely. The elbow is in the middle of that stretch. So the bicep and the forearm, as I said earlier, is equal to each other. They're the same. The volume is different, but the length is the same. And this is the naturalistic approach to it. More commonly on male rib cage, torso, and thighs are usually the same. Okay, this is just a starting point. Your characters can be all sorts of shapes and sizes, races, species, fictional stuff, whatever. Just medically, historically, traditionally, the male form is the difference between the body mass and the pelvis mass is about the same width, which is very simple. If we duplicate this, let's group, let's merge down or flatten, duplicate. This is Bridgman still. This is just how Bridgman describes it. More commonly found historically with women, with a female structure. Actually, I think the top is approximate. And the only two lines that are sort of different is that the hips are a little wider than the male. Not necessarily wider than the male. The hips are wider than the top, and that's generally because of the function of the natural life function of birth of child. What do you call it? Containment. That the structure of that has how the body has developed historically over a great period of time in order to manage the I'm having trouble using medical terms to describe that because it's not a common or an often commonly used part of my vocab. But basically, it doesn't matter what the reason is. That's just traditionally what it is. You can shoot off from there, but if you want to draw naturalistic proportions into historical elements of your characters at a starting point, if you want your character to have a different identity and a different direction or whatever, but you want to reference certain traditional structural points, these are some things to consider. Is that generally you have the average skeletal type of the chest being the same width as the hips, and then you have the other type, which is the chest being slightly narrower than the hips, or the hips being wider than the chest mass. That's just two tools in your bag of anatomy to work with. That will help remember, like if you're building that type of body into your piece, what the difference there is. If I just hide the Frazetta, or so the Bridgman copy and paste here, and also that, if you look at the female there, I know that she's going away, but this the hip there, and then the chest there is clearly different. It's clearly, and that's even though it's foreshortened, and so the parts of the body that are up here closer to us should be bigger anyway. Frazetta has made sure, because he actually really likes the human anatomy, and that's not just females, it's males. He really likes the poetry that's in all the shapes of, and the action and the drama of the figures of the human and the male and the female bodies and monsters and all that alike. But he's definitely made sure that the body language, I mean, if you want, with the foreshortening, that's the difference with the foreshortening, is it's just that cube is the average part of the cube is bigger than the average part of the torso, the pelvis. But with the foreshortening, he's just made it sort of fan out at the bottom because it's getting closer to us at the bottom of the cube, or the rhomboid there. And so that's an example. Whereas you look at the guy, this width here is just that width there. It's a little bit smaller, in fact, because it's just a little bit further away. And if you look on a lot of guys and girls that do bodybuilding, let's go back up to here, where you've got you see this all the time. If I'm looking at the back of a guy or a girl who works out, you've got this kind of musculature, right? Like the shoulder blades, and then these massive muscles up in the shoulders there, and so forth. And then that you might find that there's Jim Lee describes the Y shapes that are in there if you're doing comic book art. I don't know if it's like that. It was very simplified, but basically you have like a dip that's in there as well. But anyway, it's this. It's like an upside down funnel. It's just this. The further you look up, that as your gaze goes up, the further you look up, the bodybuilder, the bigger it gets. If you look at their feet down at the bottom, and then you go up and you got this like the calf muscles, and then the knees, and then the big thighs. Then you get to the frame of the waist, because they don't really build a lot of muscle out on the thighs. But then at the starting point of the waist and it's the same, and it would continue up to be roughly the same on a male. But because of the bodybuilding, it just shoots straight out laterally, right? So that's the Bridgman consideration. Okay, so let's grab those two, shrink them up a bit, put that aside, and then look at the Marvel way. So this is Marvel structure number 2. I do have, if I come back to here, Marvel way to draw, I have a similar one here again. I'll see if I can copy that in. It's in the book. There we go. I'm going to do a stickman version of that, because there's no point to just copying something over if you're not actually doing the work yourself. So I'm going to make sure I draw a circle. I'm just going to operate by that Jolly Roger style skull thing. So we have the cranium, and then we got the jaw at the front. You could be looking at the back right now. You could be looking at the back of the guy and seeing, with no neck, and seeing the jaw at the front, or you could be looking at the front of them, seeing the general shape of it there. Let's just count this in, because let's just do our due diligence for this study for about the halfway already. Marvel is a little different. I think Marvel is 9 heads tall, or 8.5. The half comes into the neck, and there's actually like a half at the foot. Again, if you have a look on the split, Let's group all this. Procreate's working very well for this setup. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. But half is in here, and it's like not so much. Is it a half up there and a half down here? Approximately. I think one of them is like more like a quarter. Because if you look at that head size there and that, you're looking at possibly a quarter. So just consider that it's approximately between a half and a quarter. Again, a half and a quarter. It's like from the ankle to the bottom of the foot is a half, but then between the ankle and the bottom of the from the bottom of the leg and the bottom of the foot is a half. But from the bottom of the ankle and the bottom of the foot is a quarter, obviously, because you're halving that. So anyway, just something to consider. You're not going to be drawing straight on if you're drawing drama into your piece. This is just to go, let's just check the measurements so that at least we can consider this when we're building a character. This is the Marvel way. Theirs are a little taller because their characters are just more accentuated. So this is where we're talking about, there's no, when you're looking at everyone's frames from around the world, from child to adolescent to adult, they're different cultures, different genealogy, family genealogy, it's different again. Medical journaling, certain types or common types of people that they end up getting to cut up and do their analysis on, and then different anatomy artists, if you want to call Bridgman an anatomy artist. I'm not sure how much art he did in addition to that. I know that he did some. I don't know, I don't have them on me. I don't know exactly where. I thought there was quite a few. He's mostly just did an anatomy. But then you have a different anatomy artist and a different anatomy artist and a different tutor and a Loomis and Bern Hogarth, and then you have George Bridgman and so on. They all kind of just veer off from the naturalistic medical component, which is still only a narrow portion of all the body types in the world. But if you have this, you can stretch it out. The head count, you can at least make sure that you're balancing your character out over the functionality of it. So you got your neck. Just a quick look. There was another thing to look at from Marvel. That is one example here. There's a shot just up earlier. Let's just choose that one. This one here, it's basically going from a pelvis, a stickman, sorry, to a volumetric. I'll just copy that just as a reference. The pose, the angle it's coming from. Let's see if I can copy another one that was not copying. I don't know why some of these. I think it's how it's embedded. So if we just put that off to the side here. So they've kind of done a oval sort of torso, an eggy torso, and then at the halfway point, or it appears that their pelvis sits just above the halfway line. It doesn't sit right on the halfway point. You've got their midpoint there, and then you've got just the same sort of structure here again, right? So let's just put just average the knees out, like sort of in line with the hips there, but then bring the ankles in down the bottom here. This is just a front on. length there should be the same as that length there. We'll just put them right out at the side here, and then they've just got the flippers from the front, and the hands are once again roughly starting from the halfway point, halfway up. Halfway between these is the elbows. I probably screwed it up a little there. You can put the shoulders out. They use circles for shoulders as well. Same length, same length, same length. There, that's the marble breakdown. Pretty straightforward, don't you think? This is the skeletal structure method of both. So you look down below, Hogarth. The Bridgman is 8, approximately. At 4.5, you've got 4.5. You've got the midpoint. At 6.5, you've got the knees. At 2.5, you've got the elbows. The head's tall. So that's a couple. You see the subtle variations. You can see the similarities. You are probably deciding on what you prefer at this stage. The strong thing about Bridgman's cubic, blocky structural things is it very quickly introduces your perspective, a very good notation of which way the torso is twisting and bending and facing and sandwiching and like an accordion, you know, like it's, you can see what if you change that to a rib cage that is a little, like the marble one's actually a little bit more anatomically correct, where it's following that oval shape of the torso is actually following the medical structure of a rib cage. But it's kind of like that cranium, that circle cranium. Like no matter what angle you look at it, it kind of loses perspective. What if you have a look down here? What I've drawn over top of that. It doesn't matter. We're tutorialing ourselves. They've fixed the perspective by going, cool, we can see the top of the chest using that, in this case, using a cut, a slice through the whole oval and taking the top of the egg off of it. And then if you want for the pelvis, which is quite narrow here, you can take a slither off the side of it. Almost looks like one of those wooden dolls, the mannequins you can get, where they've just rotated the pelvis sideways to get the width of the pelvis in this little oval. Same thing, basically two eggs, or two ovals with the top cut off or the side cut off, or both of the both ends actually cut off. It's just that the bottom section is cut off much wider, so it doesn't look any different. Another line that they will throw in there is this one here, which is like the bottom of the rib cage, in the marble way. And that's, if you see the drawing develop when they put the volume in, which is what we're going to look at now. We'll put the volume in over top of the skeleton. You'll throw in some of the breakdown of like the chest section, and then the rib cage and so forth. You can put that line in to here if it helps, but just remember, like that's a way of telling you in this stage what you're doing in the next. That's what it's about. It's about helping you and you deciding what helps you and what is great, structurally natural, proportionately correct, ratio correct, structurally sound. It's just enough to be true to how you want to set it up, and then to sort of help you build the next stage in. I still think there's some opportunity, there's always opportunity for me to develop my structure. So I started with the Marvel way. I like the limbs as a starting point from the Marvel way because they're just lines and circles, and it just allows me to go, well, if I draw the full line of the leg in a direction, or if I draw the thigh off in one direction, then the calf needs to be equally as long. So if I want his leg to go up and down for whatever reason, they need to be of equal length. If it's being shortened, like he's got a really big knee and it's coming towards us, and he's got the calf in front of us, and then the leg, and or he's kicking big foot towards us, then you kind of just, all that stuff gets sort of thrown out of all the equality of those lines gets thrown out, and you just make sure that the perspective of things with these guiding lines is like, ultimately the thigh needs to be that thick up there. It sort of squashes in around the knee here, and then we'll probably look at that, well, we will have to look at that later at some point. Cool. Let's go to volume now. So we've looked at how to go to our major influences, masters that we really like their work, their body language, the drama in their work. They've proven it. They've compelled us. They've inspired us. They've fueled our imagination of characters doing so much more than walking, standing, sitting, lying. They've given us the real chemistry, the real fireworks of what drama is. Then we've looked at how to capture that drama with three basic cubes, the three masses, the head, the torso, the pelvis, and making sure they're doing a very basic counteracting, balancing act of looking dramatic while naturally just, accordion, heads tilted back, pelvis is I'm gonna head the ball, the soccer ball straight up and down. My head tilts back, my chest goes forward, my pelvis tilts even further again to arch my whole back. I'm having a guy punch the monster in the face. What's going on there? I'm having a Witch King of Angmar bringing down the hammer, bringing the axe, whatever. How is all that magnificent, masterful body language drawn into these guys, these influences that you totally, you really aspire to? What's the basics of that? And it's like, here's three cubes, very simple. And then just to help sort of talk about the secondary masses, you've got the arms and the legs. Here's a couple of systems here. They're both maybe proportionately different. It's quite okay, but just the halfway point between the thigh and the ankle, between the shoulder and the wrist, is the elbow and the knee. It's in halves. It's very simple. I think the arms are a bit shorter than the legs to the whole leg composition somehow. Oh, maybe the distance between the shoulder and the wrist and the thigh. No, the leg definitely does look taller there. It's like if the thigh is connecting up here on that one there. Yeah, the leg is definitely longer than the arm up into the wrist and the ankle. That's okay. So we've figured out how to capture the drama of our masters, of our influences, with three basic masses, and then how to look at the proportions of the secondary masses, the arms and the legs, and just making sure that there's a certain measurement in that. Let's just look at building our own system and adding some volume to it. So I am going to grab all that. Let's just put all of that in a group. Slide it over just so that if we want to look at some of that other stuff. Oh. Slide that over. I'm going to extend that white space on the right. Yeah, so get yourself some more paper or create a new layer. You know, you don't. I'm just making sure we've got all of this just for reference. All right. So let's do someone doing something dramatic, such as door kicking. So I am going to do just something. I'm just going to do something a little instinctual here. So this here to me is just a line of balance. So it's just saying that's the up and right. How far over is my character going to be committed? I want to make sure it's dramatic. How far over they're going to be committed to the balance of the scene. Then the next thing I'm going to do is draw a line of action. This is me, okay? This is what I do. A line of action to help with the overall body language. So there's the top of the head there, that line up there, and then down. That's the head, the top of the head. This is the bottom of the foot, approximately. And the body language, I want to go approximately something like that. And the line of action, I'm having to draw an arc away from the rotation of my elbow at the moment. Something like that. And all this becomes is it's almost like a zeitgeist. It's basically the spirit of your character. You don't see it, but it influences the decision of the body language. So I'm going to put the skull. So we'll just go with the circle because that seems like a very sound idea. Just to use that there. Actually, you know what? I'm going to go with Bridgman. So I'm going to actually use that. You know, I'm going to go Angmar. I'm going to use that to some degree. This is the head is facing down because I want it to counteract the torso, which is going to come next. The torso is going to go out this way. I'm going to put a little bit, I'm going to make the top a little bit narrower just to what do you want to call it, emphasize that the rib cage being narrower at the top and wider at the bottom. There's the neck sort of arching forward. All right. And I think the hips are actually going to go even further again. Let me just explore this. So this is not straight. This is not a straight on model. This is me using what I've learnt so far to help build this out. I just forgot one thing, and that is that the hips should be approximately the same width for this guy as as the torso, so I'm just making sure it's not too much bigger. The spine's in there. It might be a little extended a little far down, and that's okay. This is approximately halfway between there and there. So just this pose means that the midpoint of the hips is there, and then halfway between here and here is the knee, and then I am going to do something a little bit more what I said before about just having the toes sort of crumpled back in like that. I'm using that line of action now. I can get rid of it if you're doing it traditionally, just erase a little bit of that out. You don't need, like I said, it's a zeitgeist. It's something that actually sometimes forms the center line down the rib cage of the chest and the spine. I'm just going to erase it because I'm still exploring. And then if I rotate this up, that might be where the knee is from the other side, but I'm just going to make it a bit bigger because it's going to be closer to us. So this is the thigh, his right thigh, and let's do the coffin. Sort of thing. I'll put the ankle in there as well, and then okay, so he is kicking a door in. He's kind of based off of the face of us here. I'm going to adjust this and just sort of give up on that rib cage thing that's smaller at the top and the bottom, just because the angle is on. I want to emphasize this to help myself out for the next stage. I'm just going to do what I need to do. Put some cubes in there, some see-through sort of elements. There we go. Okay, so what we have so far is this straight curvature. It's kind of stretching. He's kind of stretching on that side. And then on this side, he is crushing in to the core of his body. So his strength in kicking the door in is coming from the center part of his being. It's when you go to kick a door in, feel your abs tension across the center. That's a crushing point. So his head tilts down, his pelvis tilts up. It's all sort of coming in. That his abs, his six-pack there is all crushing in. This is what's going to make them bulge. So later on, if he's topless like a Frank Rosetta thing, you're going to see some crunch between the abs and the biceps and that section there. So that's all structurally. The three masses are supporting that, the drive of a real door kicking experience. So you have the stretching of the far side of the body. It's stretching out on the far side in order to extend that leg. He's stretching out because he's committing. If you look at the mass of the body, here's the first point of contact. I've drawn it a little far away from my original line. This is the intent. 100% committed to the kick. He is going to, if there's a door there, if there is not a door there, if the door breaks or whatever, he is going to be falling forward. The center of his mass is going to end up here, the next pose. If the door gives way and he goes through it, the foot kicks the door open, and he still lands in that point, and it gives you a great option to have them then run into the building. If the door does not give way, you get a second reaction. So the first point of force for him here is this thrusting. The force is coming from, in that direction, from the ground point. If the door doesn't give way, the second point of force is right at the door, right there, and it's just gonna stay steady. But this musculature force that's coming in here starts off this way first, and then second it's going to go back that way. So the door is going to push him back. So he's going, wouldn't it be, so from an action point of view, he kicks the door flies open, he lands forward, you continue the action. In a comedic sense, if you want to explore that or show just how difficult the opposition is, he kicks the door doesn't budge a bit, the force goes back through the leg, and he pushes himself away from the door, and the whole body goes backwards. And he might actually do that thing where he's pedaling like he's on ice to get balance again. But that doesn't matter in this first one. It's just the narrative options of that. So straight, kind of straight, but then cramped here. If you want to break down like the top of the head, the face, the top of the chest, the chest down to the waistline, the angle of the pelvis, and then the extent. Here on the thigh, the calf, the thigh coming down to the knee, and then the calf, that muscle just bulging to push up, like a, whatever you want to call it, like a, what do you call those calf lifts? When you're doing the calf lifts, they're just thrusting that muscle up. And then this is mid kick. So I could do from this angle where he's committed most of, that's straight, right? He hasn't gone quite straight, but he's committed most of his strength to a straight, direct contribution of his muscle and leg structure to that door, because he wants it to break. My worry is that when you're kicking a door in, that your knee will do this and just snap in the opposite direction. ACL, everything gone. Nasty. I mean, that's an opportunity. Depends how you want to surprise your viewers, isn't it? Your readers. The guy goes to kick the door in. Beautiful shot here. Next shot, knees bending back the other way. The next shot you could do, if the door's gone wide open, you could do it looking outside. So you rotate around to in front of him. He is down here. Let's just draw the foot first. Where the door is like this. Bam. Against. And the foot is like this. And you can just see his head over it, and the torso behind. And so if we're doing this, if his foot is, it's his right foot, this is a good opportunity just to just put it off this way just a little bit. If that's coming down to his torso, down to his pelvis, let's do this. lean off the pelvis that way, so it's reaching, and then have the foot going back. There's his knee, and then accordion, torso goes off the other way, and then the head is fully leant back because he's leant in, kicked, and expelled that force, and he's fully committed himself. And then his arm is down here. Other arm might be in a similar position. And you just got to work on the foreshortening, so that might just take a little bit. But basically, you're looking at a foot that has just kicked the door in, and you're looking at the flow of this side, the crumpled nature of that side, the asymmetry. If you want a reference, imagine kicking the door in yourself. Get someone to just take a photo of you doing each pose, or do the thing where you either video it and then take key poses from each one of those shots out of the video. Just stop, pause, take a photo, to take a snip out of the video, or you do the thing where you do the kick real quick, but you hold your finger down on the this is a smartphone, on the photo button, and it'll take photos through the whole process of that and pick out the 2 keyframes that you like. There you've got very naturalistic reference, and then you're going to want to apply your type of character model to it. So I am going to I'm going to crush up pinky side is on the inside, so the short side is on that side, longer side on that side, approximately his fist. I'm just going to do just a basic sort of, so he's kind of going like this as he's kicking that door in, so he's like all coming down into that center point, digging the elbows in. I could do the same thing again by having basically the forearms all sort of pointing to the center. That's another thing too. Just if you do it yourself, you might find you've created a natural body language for that. You're unlimited amount of poses. But yeah, he's 100% committed to the kick, and there we go. Now I am going to fade this off quite low. So if you're doing this traditionally, you just use an eraser and you roll a kneadable eraser over it to lighten it up. And now I'm going to add some volume to this, just to help. I've got a couple of methods to doing this. I'm using a slightly different system here, so I'm just going to start somewhere that might make sense to me. So, for example, if I draw the knee using my method, I have this sort of thing for the kneecap, and then if I draw the cylinder, so adding volume is, to me, it helps if you're drawing like a cylinder kind of thing. There's a couple ways you can do it. Let's just start somewhere and then we'll talk about it. So the size of the legs will, sorry, just the line didn't work there. The size of the legs will vary on the musculature and the design of your character. Character design is different to this again, and your character design can be built on a character modeling sheet, so we should do that as well, and that will give you a different that will give you a slightly different interpretation from your volume at this point here. So I'm going to draw the bottom of the calf down to the ankle. You just connect that in there and then erase that if you want. You might not want to go that far out on the volume, so just basically it's a conical volumetric. So this is in no way how do you want to say it's only volumetrically supportive of what you're doing next. It's not a detailed structure. It's just making sure that the volume of where you're heading from the stick process, the formative gestural kind of anatomically formative component is working. You do a little skull, and by all means, like if you're just starting out doing this, draw it the way you think it's going to work as a starting point, and then adjust it. So this is very much why or how I'm doing these videos and these streams. Is you're just watching somebody who's familiar with familiar with much of the process and is applying themselves to it, sort of saying there's no one way to do it. You know, at least hear that part of it. There's no one way to do it, but there are a whole bunch of principles you can use each and every time in order to help get you onto your way of doing things, because that's what we're here for. We're here to discover and build our own narrative and our own style, our own identity. So I'm just gonna draw the bottom of the cylinder, the top of the cylinder, I don't need that. And then I'll show you a technique that will really help, I think, because it helped me. In this case, he's got kind of like a fist here, so I don't actually really need to. I'm just going to draw the sticks in real short because the fingers are sort of crunched up. So the wrist, I find it easier to draw back from, again, just you're just going to see the silhouette of the knuckles. I find it easier to actually like start at the knee and draw back to the hip, or you know, the elbow and draw back to the shoulder. In this case, I happen to be drawing. Going to see if I can draw this as the Marvel way a little bit, which is that rib cage. I've got another method I'll show you that I've also used, and I'll just dip that in a little bit. And the pelvis is a little hard to see at this point. It would be visible in terms of the detail. When the detail gets filled out, there would be more of it visible. And we'll draw the cranium in. And then I draw a little bit of a And that's about it. There's no need for me to draw more than that. Oh, the neck though, yeah. So just add a bit of volume opportunity there for the neck. You can also draw in that muscle there. Get rid of the top of the. Just draw the collarbone in, and I'll show you something else. So this is a little awkward, but these lines here help the perspective and the volume. This will make a big, I really think this will make a big difference to you. I can add that line there and then add that line there just for the chest, maybe compromise that volume a little bit. This is kind of like a halfway volume. And I find a lot. How do I do this? Maybe like that. The waist I find vertically really helps. You can't really see the six packs in here at the moment, but you can try to like put those in. And I'm going to go and jump across to my other completed list of poses to show you the volume that got built in. But this allows me to finally see how the foot and the leg and the arm and which way they're facing, the thighs, I've got to rotate it if I have to. That's a little weird. It is a little comical. If you want to be more real, if you wanted more realism, then that's when you go to Bridgman's anatomy, and we practice anyway. So I'm going to do that as a follow-up to this process. With the head, all I do is that. I would say this leg is probably a little long, and you can distort that. I would say that's a little long, and the distance between the foot and the knee and the thigh needs to adjust. I think I could change the arms to go into further back as well, and just to look into the extremity of it. Thanks to digital, I can do that quite quickly, at least for us on here. So I'm going to throw that even further back on here, and I think that would be a nicer, a more dramatic. And then I also get to see the crunching of the chest there, and then implement some of that core being crushed in. Add a bit more lateral sort of muscle in there, and then if I wanted to, I can add some more volume to the biceps. The next stage after that, so with Marvel, Marvel down here, that's the middle stage. Marvel has got quite bendy, fluid ways of building that in. The other thing you can do is, like, for you're drawing this way, and then a little one that way, and then this way, and then that way, making sure that you're probably avoid parallel lines where you can. Try to like, this is kind of very Spider-Man-ish in that sense. See how it's kind of like there's the knee. The knee is sort of crushed in there. Spider-Man's. So it's just a little bit more expressive. Like comics are like that, right? They're really, you want to look at the excitement and the drama of the lines, right down to the lines being asymmetric all the time. So you draw the bicep on a bicep. You've got your shoulder, right, and then you flick back the other way, and then might have down to the elbow. You know, like you can, it depends how illustrative you want to be, right? Got a whatchamacallit, the veins there, and then you've got your, what do they call it, the deltoid up the top there, digging out of the Ninja Turtle sort of thing, and then you've got the shoulder up that way, and then depending on how far side you can see the torso coming in from there. But you know, that's the side of the bicep kind of thing, like where, see, like this is not naturalistic at all. Like the back end here does not necessarily cut up like that, but it looks interesting from a comic point of view of there's drama in the lines. It's not just the body language, it's not just the whole form of the character, it's the lines. And I guarantee you, people who don't understand the art of comic art are buying into it partly for that reason, because everything is talking about like Spider-Man's activity and his ability and all that. It's all speaking back to that point of accentuation and extremity and drama and action and interesting line work. People who know what's going on in this scene, people who know the artwork of the work of a comic book artist and what they put into making this really interesting is what they're looking for. Like a lot of like really attentive artists and connoisseurs of the work, even if they're not an artist, they're looking for this kind of stuff where it's really interesting right down to the line work, and just really enjoying it as an art, not just as a quick episode of, oh yeah, now I'm up to the 1400th episode of Spider-Man doing something and someone defeating someone else and establishing this other verse or whatever. It's not just about that. It's they'll look at all the lines that are speaking to that story of drama and extremity and action and the characteristics of that character, what makes them powerful and unique. So Spider-Man's got these super elasticy type abilities that are beyond human. So you can not only build the drama into the pose, but you can also build in the line work that's going to really support that. And you can do that with that David Finch has done a video of opposing arcs and constantly building opposing arcs into your work. If we have a look back down at this one here, I'll just have a quick draw over. So you could go more extreme than this. you see what I mean. So they've kind of got like the biceps coming around nice and curvy, and then the shoulder, and then the bicep, and then they're doing the Ninja Turtle sort of thing where it's like you've got these beautiful bulges happening all the way down to the wrist, which is enjoyable to look at and all that. Veins and stuff, and it starts to look really kind of like, the more detail you put into it and then you're rendering it, it looks really, really Moorish and really cool. But by all means, like, just try with your volume curving different ways all the time, and build, play around with it. Don't just necessarily do what I've done here with the cylinders. Is like, okay, cool, we've done the skeleton, we've done the basic volume, I know which, I agree, the angle, the direction, the foreshortening of this guy, it's working, cool. He gets cut back down, he gets faded out, and then we put all the goods into that, and we play around with it. Making sure that they point back to that volume. So as you can see, like, my original volume is really kind of faded out. I could make this another stage where I draw over top of it again. Like, it's really for the security of you, like, not having to have so much to do so early on, and to find something structural that really helps you do one thing at a time, and that is guarantee the drama of your character, is bringing it home. I actually really like superheroes with the round sort of head. It's a strong, for me, like, the triangle is quite strong as a compositional form, but then the circle in places as well, like Jason Statham's head or whatever, like, there's certain really strong sort of features that you'll find in the physique. Let's say this guy's got like a full body suit on, so this stuff is just sort of like a full, like, masky sort of thing, just to reduce the cost right now. And push it. If in doubt, and push it out. If I wanted to, I could sort of just do a note here. I call it notes sometimes. It's basically something that's not going to survive the final draft, but the note is that the arm on the far side here is shadowed out. And I'm just dabbing my way through the volume here at the moment. doesn't have to be super articulated. And I'm just showing you an example of volume, like more of a developed volume that's not cylindrical, and we're building on the drama of the original intent. So build a bit more backside into him. So he doesn't have to be like insanely strong in every aspect of it. He does have probably, you know, fairly large legs. Let's just put a line in there to see what it does. Just make sure it goes the opposite direction. Sometimes it's easier to draw back. I said that before. It's easier to draw back from the ankle or whatever. What have I got here? Alright, so there is kind of a bulge on the top of the foot. If you're inclined to draw like sausage fingers, for example, one of the great functions of opposing arcs, instead of just going, oh, here's a finger, try doing like this when you're drawing, and making sure that, you know, that your sides are not symmetric, right? And it depends what angle you're looking at it from, but try to avoid parallel lines. So always draw away from, or, you know, it's like in clothing, you constantly see that asymmetry. Just like keep on telling yourself that, build asymmetry into opportunities. What does the far side of your limb look like? So I could come up. Oh, I keep build that out a little bit there. Yeah, if you kind of get that in it, asymmetry. Just keep telling yourself that. Try to, like, am I going to draw this leg the same as that side that I just drew, and then the knee? No, because if your character looks like that, then yeah. But my guy is more muscular, so I'm going to do that. And then because I'm sort of bringing in some sort of Spider-Man, for some reason, Spider-Man features, I'm just going to make him quite stringy. I want to beef up this side here, and I'll scooch back this way, and then, like, you can scooch up to a point like that. It becomes quite illustrative. I find, like, do that if you want to get into realism. You have to sort of round things off a little bit more and just sort of bring it back in, you know. And sometimes when you're overlapping some of these lines, you'll go, that looks inflamed, or something looks wrong about it. Just try overlapping it the other direction, because it could just be that you've imagined it a particular way, but by the time it you've sort of put it together, you've done it the opposite. You know, I don't know if dyslexia affects the way that the sequence of how you draw lines or whatever. But it could do. So just try it the other way. And this is just a rendering. I think I probably got that too far out, so I'm probably just going to carve, instead of carving it back in normally, I'm going to carve back it the other way a little bit. I keep double tapping to change between pencil and eraser, and I've done that many times now. When it doesn't work, it's a bit of a surprise. Am I imagining any other lines up here? I don't think so. I think he needs an ankle, bit of ankle here or something, or whatever. If I hide these two layers, I got a guy that's very lanky, a fair bit out of proportion too. I think it's because the angle I've got him on is it's foreshortened, but he's not that. He's much more side on. So I can just erase. If you're doing it traditionally, just erase it or scan it in and then adjust it digitally. If you're doing it digitally like I am here, obviously no problem. Now, if I wanted to, I could just use this as another stepping stone, fade it out, and then draw over top of him again, a lot more interestingly. And then if I want to go back and look at some of my influences about how they've done it, where they've blocked out certain details, if they black out parts of the body, they just cut out, like the rib cage or something on one side of the body, or the face. Just look at bringing across some of your influences. You can just use it to help piece together, and just use that as a note, as in like, okay, cool, I've drawn this guy. Now I'm going to fade him out again, and then I'm going to put a cloak on him, and look at Bridgman's. Just for an example, if we go back to Bridgman, it's great having these little things open, and they're just having a look at some of the anatomical breakdowns and then following through. So what I've shown you is the structural methods that Bridgman's used, and the structural methods that Marvel have used, Stan Lee and that, and friends. And then what you can do is look at the extended finished volumetric developments after this, after the basic three masses and your stickman proportions and that. And then you can build this anatomy into it. See if I can copy that in. There we go. And this is just where you would go. You go from doing this, Marvel, Bridgman, and then developing your own method. So let me just close off this and bring up that guy there, for example. For developing your own way. I'll just quickly show you the other one, then we'll talk about the detail of the volume, and then we're pretty much done for this session, because we don't want to go over 3 hours really. You're going to burn yourself out. So let's just have a quick look at so here I created a skeleton that was very accurate, according to I don't think I have it there, do I? There it is. So I just practiced a 9 head tall one, because this was based off of Marvel and David Finch, and so I mapped it out. Okay, just sort of getting it in. I'm just letting myself absorb that. A whole head, half a head for a neck, then 2 heads for the chest, and and so forth. And then you've got the hands start just below the hips, so halfway between the shoulders and those hands is the elbows, where the hips are down to the ankles. Halfway between that is the knees, so forth. So I went and drew that, gave me a great sort of feeling for where stuff is at, and then I started drawing a bunch of skeletons with that percolating, that proportions in the back of my head. So we've got a lot of these are actually to proportion to scale, and some of the foreshortening as well really worked out. So this guy is creeping towards us with a knife and a hand out. I mean, you look at this guy now, all it is the basic skeletal structure, and I'm using an overlapping half egg setup for the torso and pelvis. I actually haven't drawn in the torso as a block and the pelvis as a block. I've actually just drawn in volumetric lines that overlap to help form that in the volumetric phase next. So that's how I've personalized mine prior to learning Bridgman. So that was purely Marvel being customized to the first phase, customized. I would draw the line of action, which is right there, the spine. I would stroke that through and go, cool. I'm imagining in my head, or I've seen the masters do that thing where their character has this flow and this body movement. I'm going to draw that line in. And then I'm going to build my stickman based off of that. If you look at this here, there's not much going on aside from the stickman proportions, you know, and considering the volume of the body and the overall gesture. But you could change that to anything. You could change that to a pirate, a Dungeons and Dragons character, your own character. You could put that from a game character. Like the power of the model and personalizing that model to your system off of Bridgman and Marvel really gives you an opportunity to decorate that character in a really interesting way. All of these skeletons have started to really speak volumes about what the character is doing and the body language, the action, the commitment to what they're doing. Singing, golfing, shooting, karate, and so forth. So the next thing I've done is add volume to that. I'll leave it a little messy. This one down here, the sniper, you can see where the stick man was drawn in. When I originally drew over top of it, it appeared to be too stretched. So when I did the volume, I moved it back a bit to sort of have it looking a little bit more realistic, realistically proportioned, and that's just what the volume does. These are very, very smooth curves, volumetrically built out, using the arcs of the legs and the arms to help me in the next process, the detailed process, to grab onto the perspective. Onto the perspective of the characters and which way their limbs are facing. That one there is a little unbalanced because the foreshortening of the leg being on this side means that he would just fall backwards. And I learnt that. This guy here worked really well. He's coming sort of towards us and to the right, and the arms are all failing. I've tried to build asymmetry into it. The chest is rotating and is bent back on an angle. The hips are rotated in the opposite direction and tilted again. And then the face is further around, and all of that is built on that line of action I first drew, which is that stroke that goes from the top of the head right down to the pelvis and right through the center of the chest. I followed that around. This guy's a little lanky. I shortened the arms a bit. I brought the leg in underneath him to counterbalance. I think that might actually have to go further back. He might need to angle a little bit more. Another example of this character is somewhat committed to the dancing, the dancing and the singing. The body weight is shifting. There will have to be another movement where the left leg comes around and the character falls back onto that leg, but it just looks dramatic. It looks like there is movement, running punch, jumping over someone, thrusting with a sword. If I drop out the skeletons there, we can just see the volume. And so you're really, by the time you build a basic volume over top of your model, you're then looking at a really solid foundation for doing a creative character, something really interesting that you know will end up proportionately correct, dramatically effective. Like, it's including the kind of movement, the body movement, the commitment to that decision that the character is making. It's paying off, and it's allowing you to decorate something that's going to work. So that is what's occurring in the space of this. It's at this point here we will go on to another session where we will look at eyeballing very loosely the anatomical suggestion and process of Bridgman here. I think is just a fantastic way to build anatomical foundation into what you're doing on top of those foundations that you built earlier. If I just draw this arm here, the bicep, and the way that it works, just etching my way through it in a way. Where no single line is the final line. Yeah, and I just wanted to build this into the back end of today's presentation so that we could consider the direction that it's heading. Like, what are you getting for all this, the cost of doing this and using this process. And if I use just some basic rendering here, which I've done heaps of rendering, I've spent way more time rendering than the anatomical, the foundational anatomical thing, which is backwards. But like a lot of us, we get sort of a little bit angsty and we jump in on the rendering of characters and having fun with that before we really understand the foundational things. So I can testify to saying, like, building volume, going straight to building a character that's got lots of detail and volume to it, is what we often gravitate to. You just want to draw what you see, right? You see someone's really cool, or an action guy, or you're studying a figure or life drawing or whatever. You just want to draw that volume straight up, and then you throw yourself into a world of hurt of having so much to draw. If you just draw volumetrically, just straight up, you want to like gun it, trying to build the arm in while the person is standing there, and you're going, oh, where's the light? I know you can see their muscle doing this, and where's the light coming? You get very good at it. You might naturally win at doing it this way, and that's great too, because it frees you up. Both methods are a really good thing. In terms of engaging different parts of your mind. But if you're like me, when I first started out, you try to draw what you see instead of how it's been structured, and that's kind of when you end up with that of trying to swallow too much and then build too much into your drawing, and at once you're trying to do, and then because things don't seem to be lining up, and there's things are going wrong volumetrically, or you're not identifying like those three masses and the levering, the cantilevering, and the balancing act that they're doing based out of basic cubes, it gets very hard to build the rest of the experience into something that makes sense, you know. And if you want to be able to control drama without having to copy somebody else's work, you know, and try and find an example where their character or a photo of them or their artwork or their tutorials are on the exact same angle as the character you're drawing and just copying it across. You want to be able to build that from your own imagination. It's using this principle of looking for the three masses and then utilizing the leverage of them, bending and twisting and crushing and rotating and all that will really help create an imaginative process where you think you think about someone, Chuck Norris, Van Damme, or Carl Lewis, or somebody doing something, and in your mind you can just break down that image. Very easy to imagine these people doing these things, but then converting the body angle into a cube or a block that's on an angle, the pelvis on an angle, the head on the right angle as they're doing, and then going, cool, snapshot, put it on the page, then use the proportionate stick figure limbs, secondary components flowing on from that. Then we can do the detailed work of building out those volumes in anatomical and musculature and medical methods and etc, etc. If it's going to be more Marvel, or if it's going to be more anatomical, or in the sense of however you want to design your characters, and whoever you're aspiring to sort of build from, and so on. So there we go. Get inspired by your masters. Look at their work. Refine your influences down to just a single handful of influences for a single style. So if you want to do comic, look at your most influential comic artist masters. If you want to draw illustrated realism and that, or anime style, look at no more than a handful. You probably don't need more than 3, really, that have very similar overlapping styles that support where you feel you want. If you have really more than 3, you're probably going to have too much influence, or it's going to scatter you. So 1 or 2 is enough. 2 is plenty. 3 is the top. I put 4 in just to show that you can have quite a few overlapping people achieving the same sort of thing. But really, if all I ever studied was Bridgman and Frazetta, I would, because those guys are executing in the way that I want to see myself executing in my characters, then just stick with that. Grab that. Then we looked at how to break them down into basic components so that we can start creating dramatic anatomy from very basic components. This is just the first episode of this. I am going to repeat this process in my own time. So between now and when we do our next episode, just practice drawing the 3 masses and then the limbs, but mostly the movement and the leverage of the 3 masses over top of your influences. Just do that one thing for now, to establish dramatic anatomy and drama in your drawings, focus on that. Do it as much as you possibly can. It might get monotonous. It might get all too easy, but just remember, then what I would suggest, if you feel like, okay, I've drawn enough cubes and line and stickmen over top of my influences, take the influences away, blank page, and then draw in what you are imagining, and just let the imagination and the influence of those masters work their way through a blank page application and draw the masses in, and do that as often as you can between now and the next episode, where the next episode will do a quick recap on this at the intro, and then move on to building interesting volumes, anatomical volume, over top of those dramatic gestures. And that will be the next episode. So thanks everyone for hanging out through this 3-hour. This is the first stream. There are a couple of hiccups. If you got this far, thanks very much for hanging out. We'll get better technically, we'll get better artistically, and I'd like to see you here the next time. So thanks for hanging out. Catch you again real soon. Love and peace. Keep drawing. Just do that one thing. Get inspired. We'll catch you soon. Bye now.